Before he died, River Phoenix whispered words that would haunt those closest to him for decades. It wasn't just the drugs, the sudden collapse on a Hollywood sidewalk, or the tragedy that filled tabloid headlines. It was the glimpse of a soul burning with brilliance, fury, and unspoken pain. A young actor who seemed to carry the weight of the world while dazzling it at the same time. Hollywood had never seen anyone like him. At just 23, River had already become a symbol of genius, beauty, and rebellion. His emerald eyes and unassuming charm hid a complexity few could comprehend. Fans adored him, critics hailed him, and his peers envied the effortless magnetism he carried into every role. Yet behind that magnetic smile, there was a struggle, a hidden turmoil that whispered through the edges of fame and fortune, a turmoil that would eventually consume him. The night River Phoenix died outside the Viper Room in 1993 is etched in collective memory, replayed endlessly in documentaries, books, and internet forums. But what really happened that night, and the days leading up to it, remains clouded in mystery. Some say it was a tragic accident, the price of being too young and too gifted in a world that doesn't forgive ambition. Others suggest a far darker reality, one intertwined with Hollywood's ruthless machinery, the pressures of fame, and the silent battles River fought alone. Tonight, we peel back the layers of illusion, nostalgia, and rumor. We explore the life of a star who burned so brightly that the world was left blinded. When he vanished, what drove River Phoenix, what haunted him, and what truths did the world never truly see? His story is as mesmerizing as it is heartbreaking, and it begins long before the final, fateful night. River Phoenix was born into a nomadic family of musicians and performers in Madras, Oregon, in 1970, a child of the American counterculture. His parents, John Lee and Arlene Phoenix, had abandoned conventional living, embracing a life that wove spirituality, art, and rebellion into every day. The family traveled constantly, performing on streets and in small venues, instilling in River and his siblings a deep connection to music, performance, and the philosophy of questioning authority. It was a childhood far removed from normalcy, yet it shaped River into a uniquely perceptive, introspective, and intensely creative young man. By the early 1980s, River had moved to Los Angeles, the city of dreams and dangers, with his family seeking opportunities in the entertainment industry. His sister, Rain, and brothers, Joaquin and Summer, were also immersed in this whirlwind of art and self-discovery. Los Angeles was electrifying yet unforgiving, a place where talent could launch overnight and collapse just as quickly. For River, it became the arena where his gifts would shine, but also where the pressures he had learned to navigate in a wandering childhood would collide violently with the harsh realities of fame. River's early career began with television appearances and small film roles, yet it was his breakout performance in Stand By Me, 1986, that announced him as Hollywood's new prodigy. At only 16, he captivated audiences with a rawness and authenticity far beyond his years. Critics compared him to the greatest actors of his generation, sensing a depth in his performances that suggested not only innate talent but a rare emotional intelligence. Behind the scenes, River was known to be thoughtful, intensely private, and deeply principled. He had a reputation for honesty, for a refusal to compromise his beliefs, and for a quiet defiance against the superficiality that often defined Hollywood. This defiance extended beyond the screen. River was an outspoken advocate for environmental causes, animal rights, and social justice. He embraced a vegetarian lifestyle, rejected corporate sponsorships, and often used his growing platform to draw attention to injustices others preferred to ignore. Yet as his star rose, the very city that celebrated him began to exert pressures that clashed with his ideals. He witnessed the excesses of fame, the drug-fueled decadence that surrounded him, and the quiet manipulations of an industry that demanded conformity and compromise. Within this paradox lay the seeds of tension that would shape his life and ultimately his death. River's magnetism drew friends, lovers, and collaborators, yet it also attracted those who saw opportunity in his vulnerability. As he navigated premieres, award ceremonies, and the constant scrutiny of fans and media, he carried a private world of reflection, fear, and ambition, an internal landscape few could access. The early 1990s marked both the pinnacle and the turning point of River Phoenix's career. Roles in films like My Own Private Idaho revealed his ability to immerse entirely into characters, who mirrored his own existential struggles. Youth on the edge, searching for meaning, battling internal and external chaos. Audiences were mesmerized by his performances, unaware that the intensity he projected on screen mirrored a private storm. And so, River's story is not just one of talent or fame. It is the story of a young man caught between two worlds, the idealistic, principled life he inherited from his family, and the seductive, perilous allure of Hollywood. The tension between these worlds, between brilliance and danger, morality and temptation, would become the crucible in which his final hours were forged. In exploring River Phoenix's life, we begin to understand that his story is not merely a biography. It is a study of contradiction, innocence and sophistication, idealism and cynicism, vulnerability and magnetism. It is a story about a world that celebrates brilliance yet can destroy it with a whisper. Tonight, we will trace the trajectory that led River, from his extraordinary beginnings to the fateful night outside the Viper Room, a night that would sear his name into history and spark questions that have never fully been answered. We will examine the rise, the choices, the unseen struggles, and the hidden truths that Hollywood never wanted to face. River Phoenix's ascent in Hollywood was meteoric, yet it was never typical. While other young stars relied on charm or marketability alone, River brought something rare, a soul that seemed to spill from the screen, leaving audiences spellbound. After Stand By Me, he was inundated with opportunities, each role carefully scrutinized by an industry eager to mold him into a star. But River refused to be anything less than authentic. He selected projects that resonated with him, that challenged both his craft and his understanding of life, often turning down lucrative offers if they clashed with his principles. His performance in Running on Empty 1988 earned him an Academy Award nomination at just 18. The film, about a family perpetually on the run, mirrored River's own upbringing in its themes of displacement, identity, and moral conflict. Critics hailed him as one of the finest actors of his generation, a talent capable of conveying profound complexity with mere glances or subtle gestures. In interviews, River was articulate yet introspective, often reflecting on the weight of fame and the responsibilities that came with influence. He was aware of the magnetic pull he held over the public and used it sparingly, letting his work speak louder than his persona. Despite the adoration, the pressures mounted. Hollywood in the late 1980s and early 1990s was a world teetering between creativity and excess. Parties, premieres, and late-night gatherings introduced River to the undercurrents of the industry, the drugs, the temptations, and the relentless pace that could consume anyone unprepared. He witnessed the decline of peers, the tragedies of young talent lost to the very lifestyle that promised glamour. River remained cautious, often retreating from events that threatened his principles. But Hollywood, persistent and persuasive, never let him entirely escape its grasp. Amidst this whirlwind, River found companionship and inspiration among kindred spirits. Friendships with actors like Keanu Reeves and Joaquin Phoenix offered moments of genuine connection. Collaborations with visionary directors challenged him to explore new emotional depths. Yet, even as he built a reputation as a conscientious artist, the contradictions of his life became more pronounced. Publicly, he was a model of integrity and talent. Privately, he wrestled with loneliness, the desire for understanding, and the burdens of early fame. It was during this peak, in 1991 and 1992, that River's life took a pivotal turn. His performance in My Own Private Idaho revealed an even darker, more profound edge to his craft. Playing a streetwise hustler grappling with love, loss, and self-discovery, River channeled his own inner conflicts into every scene. The film was celebrated as a daring exploration of marginal lives, yet it also exposed him to the darker corners of Los Angeles life, nightclubs, subcultures, and the risky edges where art and danger intersected. Friends and observers later described River as increasingly restless. He spoke often of disillusionment with Hollywood, of feeling trapped by expectation, and of seeking authenticity in a world dominated by illusion. Despite this, he continued to shine, magnetic in public appearances, mesmerizing on screen, and quietly heroic to those who knew him personally. But rising stars can be fragile. The very intensity that made River extraordinary also made him vulnerable. He was drawn into circles where temptation and peril lurked behind the glamour. The contradictions of his existence, the desire for purity and the unavoidable. Exposure to vice grew sharper each day. River's brilliance was no longer just a gift. It became a tightrope act, balancing the demands of fame, the pursuit of truth in his art, and the personal demons he could not escape. By 1993, River was at the height of his fame, yet beneath the surface tension and risk had reached a breaking point. The city he had navigated with care now posed challenges that even his talent and principles could not fully shield him from. It was here, amid the electric energy of Los Angeles nightlife, that the story moves toward its tragic, unforgettable climax. The night that would end River Phoenix's life and leave questions lingering in the shadows of Hollywood forever. The night of October 31st, 1993, began like many others in Hollywood, but it would end in tragedy. River Phoenix, just 23 years old, had gone to the Viper Room, a nightclub on the Sunset Strip partially owned by Johnny Depp. The club was infamous for its edgy clientele, the kind that blurred the lines between celebrity, artistry, and danger. That evening, friends and onlookers later recalled River as unusually quiet, almost contemplative, a far cry from the energy of the previous years. Yet even in his silence, there was a magnetic presence. He was always noticed, always admired, the young man who had captivated millions with his brilliance on screen. What happened inside the Viper Room remains a mix of witness accounts, speculation, and rumors. A complex puzzle that continues to haunt fans and historians alike. Around 1:15 a.m., River collapsed outside the club. Attempts to revive him were frantic but ultimately futile. Later, toxicology reports confirmed the presence of multiple drugs in his system, most notably cocaine and heroin, a lethal combination often referred to as a speedball. Yet the story was never as simple as accidental overindulgence. Those close to River claimed he had been cautious, even fearful of the drug culture around him. Many believe he may have been experimenting, perhaps seeking escape, or perhaps entrapped by the very environment he had navigated with such care throughout his short life. Witnesses and friends described the chaotic moments surrounding his collapse. The panic, the frantic calls to paramedics, the helpless faces of those who loved him. Yet even as the city tried to process what had happened, whispers of Hollywood negligence began to circulate. The club had been known for its indulgent culture, the kind where youthful stars could easily be exposed to temptation and danger. Some suggested that certain influences, people River trusted, places he frequented, had played a role in the circumstances that led to his death. It became a story not just of tragedy, but of an industry that often consumes its brightest lights with quiet, relentless force. Media coverage was immediate and sensational. Headlines painted River as a cautionary tale, a beautiful young star lost to drugs. Yet those who knew him insisted that the narrative missed the essence of who he was, a gifted, sensitive, principled individual navigating impossible pressures. In the aftermath, friends like Keanu Reeves and Joaquin Phoenix spoke of a man who carried the weight of the world, who had ideals too large for the compromises demanded by Hollywood. Behind the headlines, River's death was more than a celebrity tragedy. It was a collision of brilliance and vulnerability, an exposure of a system that sometimes rewards talent but fails to protect it. The mourning was widespread and deeply felt. Fans gathered outside theaters, parks, and schools, leaving flowers, letters, and candles. Tributes poured in from actors, directors, musicians, and activists. Yet even as the public grieved, a haunting question lingered. Could River Phoenix's death have been prevented? The official verdict pointed to accidental overdose. But the truth, as it often is in Hollywood, was far more layered. There were choices, pressures, and unseen influences, threads of a story that reveal the darker machinery behind the glamour. In death, as in life, River Phoenix became a symbol of talent, of vulnerability, of the harsh reality that some stars burn too brightly, too fast. The city that celebrated him, the industry that nurtured him, and the friends who adored him all felt the shockwaves of his loss. And as time passed, the story evolved into legend. Whispered secrets, hidden truths, and the haunting realization that Hollywood, for all its magic, can be merciless to those who refuse to compromise their soul. At Legends and Secrets, we've always approached stories like River Phoenix's with care, not to sensationalize, but to explore the layers beneath the surface. The human truths, the hidden struggles, and the forces that shape extraordinary lives. River's story is not merely a tale of a young star lost too soon. It is a mirror reflecting Hollywood itself, a world where brilliance is celebrated, yet often at a devastating cost. What strikes us most is the tension between who River Phoenix was and the environment he inhabited. Here was a man of unwavering principles, a voice for the voiceless, a champion for the planet, animals, and human dignity. Yet the very industry that elevated him demanded conformity, indulgence, and exposure to temptations he neither sought nor needed. This dissonance between idealism and reality is central to understanding River, not as a cautionary tale of fame or drugs, but as a profound human story about integrity in a world built on compromise. We reflect on the choices surrounding that fateful night. Could the tragedy have been avoided if Hollywood protected its young talent rather than exploiting it? Were there warning signs that went unnoticed, whispers of distress drowned out by the roar of fame and expectation? While friends describe River as careful, mindful, and deeply reflective, the circumstances that led to his death reveal how even the brightest, most conscientious individuals can be caught in a system that sometimes prioritizes spectacle over safety. The industry's machinery, the allure of nightlife, and the subtle pressures of celebrity all contributed to a tragic inevitability. But beyond analysis, there is the emotional resonance of River's life and death. His films remain timeless because they capture more than performance. They reveal a rare, raw humanity. In my own private Idaho, audiences see his sensitivity, his longing, and his quiet rebellion. In Running on Empty, they witness moral courage and vulnerability. Each role is imbued with the intensity of a life lived fully, even if briefly. Legends and Secrets believes that understanding the person behind the legend requires acknowledging both his brilliance and his pain, celebrating the art while mourning the life cut short. We invite our viewers to reflect on the fragility of genius, the cost of integrity, and the forces of culture that shape, reward, and sometimes destroy. River's story is both unique and universal, a meditation on the complexity of youth, talent, and human vulnerability. We recognize the tragedy, the what-ifs, and the haunting questions, but also the extraordinary gift River left behind. A body of work that continues to inspire, challenge, and move audiences decades later. Ultimately, Legends and Secrets views River Phoenix not merely as a star who died too young, but as a symbol of what it means to navigate a world that demands compromise from those least willing to surrender their ideals. His life reminds us to look closer, to question the systems around us, and to honor the brilliance of those who shine too brightly for their own safety. As we look back on River Phoenix's life, there is a profound sense of nostalgia, not for the tragedy, but for the extraordinary light he brought into the world while he was here. River moved through life with a rare sincerity, a purity of vision, and an unwavering commitment to truth both on and off the screen. He reminded us that greatness is not measured solely by awards, fame, or recognition, but by the depth of one's heart, the courage to stand by one's beliefs, and the ability to touch others through art and humanity. His performances continue to echo in theaters, in living rooms, and in the hearts of those who discovered him too late. Watching River, even decades after his passing, is a reminder of what it means to feel, to connect, and to bear the weight of the world while still inspiring awe. There is a bittersweet beauty in realizing that such talent could illuminate our lives so briefly, leaving us yearning for more, wondering what might have been if time had allowed him to grow, to explore, and to continue shaping the culture he had already touched so profoundly. Hollywood, in all its glittering allure, has long been a place of both creation and destruction. River's story exemplifies this duality, the glamour, the talent, the brilliance, and the peril, the pressures, the hidden tragedies that lie beneath. Yet even as we recount the shadows of his final days, we are reminded of the extraordinary human behind. The headlines, the friend, the sibling, the artist, the advocate who refused to compromise his soul for convenience or conformity. River Phoenix's legacy is not confined to memory or media. It lives in the art he created, the ideals he championed, and the quiet inspiration he instilled in countless lives. His life invites reflection on the fleeting nature of youth, the price of brilliance, and the delicate balance between light and darkness. We mourn the loss, but we also celebrate the indelible mark he left on the world, a mark of authenticity, courage, and luminous talent. Some stories are never revealed. But now you know.